Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Nathan Says podcast. At this point in time, we are finally able to do a preview of the next round. Dallas found a way to get past Colorado, and the Vegas Golden Knights found a way to get past Vancouver. Both of those series took 7 games to decide who the winner ultimately was going to be. We're going to primarily focus on that series. We are mere hours away from the conclusion of the Islanders and Flyers series. Tampa Bay, of course, was able to take care of Boston in 5 games, and they've been playing a waiting game ever since. I might do an episode in the future, in the next day or so, previewing the Tampa versus whomever wins. However, I don't think it makes much of a difference. Even if they have injuries, I think they're significantly better than both the Flyers and Islanders. So I don't think it makes a major difference. I'm picking them no matter what. I might do an episode giving the details on why they may have a chance to lose. Without further ado, this is what I have to say. Coming into this series, the Vegas Golden Knights hold a plethora of advantages over Dallas. Health is the biggest advantage I see that they have. Oftentimes in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you see the team that's able to maintain their health over the course of the tournament. That's oftentimes the team that is able to come out on top. At this point in time, the Vegas Golden Knights are fairly healthy. They have 2 goalies at their disposal that I think are better than both Bishop and Anton Khudobin when they're at their best. Bishop has made an appearance since the last time I discussed Dallas's goaltending. He was not very good at all. He looked like he wasn't healthy. He looked like he could barely move. He gave up 4 goals in less than half a period. He was proceeded to be yanked, and he's been out of the lineup scratched ever since. Fleury has proven over the course of his career he has multiple Stanley Cups. Leonard has been the horse for Vegas for the most part this whole playoffs. His numbers have been staggering. Leonard in this postseason alone has 3 shutouts. He's 8-4. His goals against average is just under 2, which is very good. His save percentage is .918, which is good. Fleury's undefeated in the playoffs. His numbers aren't quite as good. His save percentage is under 90, which is not ideal. His goals against is .267, which is average. However, that's not something that factors into Vegas losing. They're confident in both goalies. Leonard has given plenty of reason to have all the confidence of DeBoer. They've expressed that they plan on using both. It wouldn't be surprising if Fleury makes an appearance in the Dallas series at some point. Not only is goaltending a crucial thing for Dallas that they don't have fully at their disposal, they're also missing Matthias Janmark. They're also missing Andrew Cogliano. They're also not getting performances from the guys that they generally count on. Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have not shown up on the score sheet as much as I anticipated they might. Those 2 have been called out by management in the past and then elevated their game. Fortunately for Dallas, the one thing I will say is they've gotten unexpected production from other players or other players that aren't the big name stars like Jamie Benn or Seguin. In the past, guys that are not necessarily household names to the casual fan. If you look at last year's St. Louis Blues, sure, guys like Perron and Dean, Shen, and Pietrangelo, those were the guys that they would expect to play well, and they did. It was a major coming out party for Colton Parayko, who wasn't as well known until the playoffs last year. Additionally, that line of Sundqvist, Barbashev, and Pat Maroon was crucial. Those guys don't always get the kind of recognition that maybe they deserve. I'll even say Sammy Blais and Zach Sanford stepped up their game. Those are guys that casual fans maybe didn't necessarily know of until last year. The year prior, when the Capitals made their run, Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, those guys were all crucial. Carlson was big. Holtby was big. However, you didn't necessarily expect Tyler Boyd, Chandler Stevenson, Devontae Smith-Pelly, even Lars Eller. those are guys that didn't necessarily get major media attention or recognition. Those are guys that the casual fan wouldn't have expected to have a major role in why the Capitals were able to go all the way. That's something that Dallas is getting at this time. It's potentially encouraging for them that despite their stars not necessarily showing up, no pun intended, they're still getting production from guys like Heiskanen, who maybe they didn't expect him to produce to the extent he has. Klingberg has stepped up his game. He's a guy that they've maybe expected coming in would play very well. He's done his part. I'll cite just the most recent Game 7 against Colorado. Yoel Kiviranta comes into the lineup because of an injury to Cogliano, and he scores a hat trick, including the overtime Game 7 winner. That's a guy where if he now has to continue to play an extended period of time due to injuries, I imagine he's earned his spot in the lineup moving forward because of such a clutch performance. That's a guy that if Dallas is able to go all the way, unknown to maybe the casual fan, other than the organization itself, Dallas is getting production from those kind of guys. I'm a fan of Dallas more so than Vegas because I like Jim Lites and I like Jim Nill as they were part of the Detroit Red Wings organization. You could say I have a slight bias because of that. Say what you will. I'm just rooting for them. That's who I hope wins. However, I'm objectively picking against Dallas. I like parts of Dallas's roster more. I would say Dallas might have a slightly better core on defense. The one advantage that Dallas has is the fact that Vegas doesn't have a Nathan MacKinnon on their roster. They're more of a do-it-by-committee, as I've alluded to in the past. They don't really have any major game-breaker forwards. The one thing I will say about Vegas is they do have a speed and possession style forecheck, similar to what Colorado tries to play. All four of their lines can couple a speed and possession with a gritty, hard on the forecheck, defensive-minded type attack. Although they don't have a line as dynamic as the Rantanen MacKinnon Landeskog line is, that's a line that Dallas struggled mightily to contain. Even though they have no one quite as good as that, they have several that are close. Ultimately, I think Vegas has way better goaltending than what Dallas faced against Colorado. By the time the series was ultimately won by Dallas, Colorado was technically down to their third-string goaltender. Colorado was missing Erik Johnson for the entirety of the round. They were missing Matt Calvert, who's a key role player. They were also missing Gabe Landeskog for that final Game 7. Given that Colorado was mightily banged up for most of the series and the goaltending that they had at their disposal wasn't as good as the goaltending that I find to be inferior to Vegas, I think that makes Vegas the favorite. Although I think Vegas's defense is able to be exploited at times, they are way more balanced as a group of forwards. Their defense isn't far off from Dallas. I draw a lot of comparisons from some of the individual players. I think Shea Theodore plays a similar kind of game to what Miro Heiskanen provides for Dallas. I generally think Klingberg is in his own class as far as anybody that Vegas has. With the all-world goaltending that Vegas has been getting from Robin Lehner, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't continue. Dallas will probably provide a tougher task to the goaltending and on the defense than Vancouver did. It's worth noting that Vancouver did push Vegas to the brink. They took just as long to win their series as Dallas took against Colorado. However, partially why Vancouver did so well was they got all-world goaltending in their own right. Dallas doesn't have that right now. Anton Khudobin at his very best is not going to be what Jacob Markstrom and then Thatcher Demko were for Vancouver. If Ben Bishop is able to make his way back into the lineup if he's somehow able to get healthy enough to come back into the lineup and not only play, but play at the Vezina level that we've seen from him in the past, it's a lot closer of a push for me. However, given that Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have struggled to produce points, Pavelski and Perry have been good at times, struggled at times. Denis Gurianov was not as dynamic for Dallas as he was against Calgary. Roope Hintz has not been super dynamic for extended periods of time for Dallas. The Stars need a lot of guys to step up a lot more than they have, especially the guys that I've harped on in this episode that are supposed to be the star players. Those guys have been fairly invisible. I don't know that the role players for Dallas or the unexpected players who have stepped up out of the unexpected, I think Vegas will key in on them, and I think their goaltending and dynamic forecheck will ultimately be the undoing for Dallas. As a sort of bandwagon Dallas fan out of the West at the moment, I hope I'm wrong. As far as the hockey reasons for why or why not, I think Vegas is in a better spot to win this series.